World War II, that time that democracy fought off fascism with communism and the United States stopped being broke for the sake of bullets. It all starts with Adolf Hitler deciding that he wanted to conquer the world and kill or enslave everyone that wasn't an Aryan, especially Jews. Although really he just wanted to make Germany an absolute badass, which would lead to the aforementioned goals. But before all of this, he had to be powerful enough to take over the world, which meant waiting until us democratic assholes weren't expecting it. Problem is, us democratic assholes were expecting it, which led to a phony war period from about the end of 1939 to 1940, where Britain and France declared war on Germany, but didn't actually do anything according to their strategy of sit there and wait for Germans to shoot at, and they didn't have to wait for very long. Starting in the early 1940s, Germany started the war with a bang known as the Blitzkrieg, or the bamboozling of Europe, or the Lightning War. Some pretty intense shit with a lightning-fast air raid on the area they're about to light up, followed by tanks and mechanized infantry lighting it up, proceeding to bamboozle Denmark, Norway, Holland, Belgium, Luxembourg, and France, possibly in that order. And their new fascist buddies in Italy declared war on France too, because why not? And at the end of this first massive bamboozling, Germany basically controlled Europe, with Vichy France as a puppet state, and Italy as an ally, and Great Britain being the final royal pain in the Third Reich's ass. This was partially due to them evacuating theirs and France's troops at Dunkirk before the bamboozling Germans got to them, and the fact that they happen to own an empire on which the sun never sets, and still doesn't to this day, on an island across some water. And as the Germans didn't feel like swimming, and submarines are not exactly the best troop transports, they proceeded to do the Blitz, or what Londoners called the Blitz, a massive bombing operation that basically destroyed most of southern Great Britain, while using their U-boats to hunt down ships that were giving the British supplies. And at this point, Churchill was calling the US up on her cell phone late 1940 when they needed our love. But part of the issue with that is that some people were never ever getting back together with the Europeans, because fuck the world, we're still in a depression, assholes, including an American First Committee and Charles Lindbergh, as if we weren't enough of selfish bastards to begin with. The thing is, Roosevelt liked Britain and democracy and was definitely not secretly fucking any secretaries or distant cousins, thank you very much, so he gradually pushed through acts such as the Destroyers for Bases, where we gave Britain ships for bases, very self-explanatory, and the Lend-Lease Act, where Britain could now support our gun-running operation with money it didn't have, otherwise known as credit, so that the US would become the arsenal for democracy, helping to protect the four freedoms: freedom to eat, drink, fuck, and be merry. No, joking, they were the freedom of speech and expression, freedom to worship in one's own way, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. And with all this propaganda and essentially warmongering, along with US investment in industries to make more bullets, we're now basically just about to get into World War II, but not quite yet. And of course, now that Germany has invaded Russia and we're the world's arms dealers, they're starting to shoot down more of our ships, leading to more escorts from us across the Atlantic before letting British ships, escort it to Britain. And in 1941, FDR and Churchill got together, had a, little buddy-buddy thing, and then made the Atlantic Charter that says, yo, after this war, we want freedoms and shit for everybody, because we're definitely going to win. At this point, however, Germany ain't the only one with world-conquering plans, because Japan, too, wants some of that land and shit to make an Asian empire free from colonial influence, and has already allied with Hitler. And up until now, the US has been Japan's metal and oil dealer, all the way up until they started attacking French and British territory, and then they attacked Pearl Harbor, hoping for a short war with the US after the elimination of most of their navy. And with this, the war is really starting to get underway, with the allies being the USA, Britain, France, whoever the fuck else that they own through colonies, and a couple other nations, and Russia, actually it's more of the dead corpse of France, going up against the Axis powers, being Germany, Japan, and Italy. Nearing the end of 1942, things are looking a little bit bleak, with a German siege on Russian borders, Japanese control of the West Pacific, and little to no gains on the European front. But we did win the Battle of the Battle of Midway in the Pacific, crippling the Japanese Navy, and obtaining a Zero fighter plane so that we could build a plane that was better and more American. And now, because this is American history, it's time to have a quick break to talk about the home front. Number 1, we had a draft. The Selective Service Draft. The Southern ones were racist, and there were also COs, or conscientious objectors, that were put to work in public works because they didn't want to do anything with the war. Men on the farms and key industries were also excluded from the draft with the Tynings Amendment. Also, women were an integral part of the war effort. Each branch of the military allowed voluntary service of women, and I'm not going to list them out. I don't give a fuck. And thousands of white middle-class women joined the poor women in being able to work and support the United States gun-running operation, otherwise known as the war effort, which will also lead to more normalization of women in the workforce, as well as women dealing with catcallers and trying to get better work clothes. Yes, there is only one paragraph dedicated to this, as I am a summary maker, not a hardline feminist. African Americans are getting social advancement too, along with Latin Americans. After threatening Washington with a massive march on Washington by Philip Randolph, FDR signed Executive Order 8022 so that African Americans would stop being so mean, creating an Employment Practices Committee that would make things a little bit less racist in the workplace. And Latin Americans had a Zoot Suit riots in Los Angeles, and something happened there. Rayford, 10% reduction in racism and sexism from World War II, you know? Gun-running operations brings everybody together to make more bullets to shoot at other people's faces. Although, the thing that we didn't do right at all in regards to race was the internment of Japanese Americans because we're paranoid motherfuckers. That was shit. I mean, yeah. Also, fun fact, I think that was Executive Order 8066, so more 66 orders that are shit. If you didn't get that reference, I'm disappointed in you. During this entire war, though, the Depression is basically fucking over because we're now running the largest gun-running operation on the planet, which means you get a job, and you get a job, and you get a job with money, too. We even built ships in 5 days at one point because we were so goddamn fast. And this is also part of the reason why we won the war, because we didn't give 1, 2, or 3 shits about quality. Because as the saying goes, you don't need accuracy, you just need more bullets. And despite all the debt we go into running this operation, we're still one of the few powers at the end of the war that emerged as an economic superpower. 'Cause America. Duh. And finally, for a recap of the rest of the war. So, Russia kicked the Nazis out of Stalingrad and started pushing west. Soyuz Narushimi Republics Fabonic. The USA and Britain kicked ass in Africa and then Italy because we were scared of French beaches. And then everybody met up at like some conferences, like some kind of Tehran conference, and later on a Potsdam conference. And then Stalin went like, hey, you gotta go visit the French beaches. So, we made an Operation Overlord, invaded on Doomsday, June 6, 1944, while also ignoring the Holocaust because it was literally too horrible to comprehend and we were anti-Semitic and didn't want to think about it. Went to Normandy, pushed into Germany while Stalin pushed in from the east, and defeated the last German push in the Battle of the Bulge, with the memorable quote being, "nuts," after a German asked an American to surrender, which nobody should ever do. And eventually, Hitler did what I often consider doing and committed suicide. Germany then promptly surrenders, and Roosevelt dies because he was a sick old fart. Rest in peace. And now, we have to finish out the Pacific War, so the US goes on a magical vacation, killing thousands of Japanese while going island hopping and losing thousands themselves, eventually retaking the Philippines and taking Okinawa. But at this point, though, scientists like Einstein, Fermi, and Oppenheimer, along with a bunch of other smart physics people, have been making a bomb with the Manhattan Project, and Truman went like, Truman as in the vice president that's now the president, just to make it clear. He went like, I gotta end this war, you don't need any more casualties, we have to end this shit right about now. Drop that shit. So we dropped 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then the Japanese surrendered. And at the end of it all, the USA emerges as a superpower with nuclear weapons, having finally shaken off its crippling depression with a healthy dose of firearms. Join me next time when we proceed to butt heads with communism. Good night.